Alright guys, I want to show you just a quick summary of interior lighting that I ran through and did on Saturday. So if I open my first file here, this is just a basic file with some exterior lighting set up, and I have a video where I actually go through and do basic exterior lighting to get that set up, and I'm just kind of going through and setting the sun and linking the sun to the GI, and that video is in my channel, so you can go ahead and watch that. But let's assume you have some file with some exterior lighting set up. What I'm doing is I'm hitting T for top and Z for zoom, and I'm selecting all the geometry that's in this file and deleting it. And if I hit Shift C, you can see my camera is still in the file, and Shift L and my sun is still in the file. So I'm going to hit Shift L again and hide my sun, Shift C and hide my camera. So the first thing to do is just delete that geometry out, and then what I want to do is come under References, go to XREF Scene, I'm going to click Add, and I'm going to go to that same folder that I was just in, only I'm going to go to Items to Import here and select the shell of my building. So this loads in, and you can see it's now here in my scene. And then I'm going to show my camera and show my sun. So Shift C for the camera, Shift L for the sun. And I just want to move my camera into the space. And I'm going to grab my target and just move him over as well. And I'll hit F for front just so I can see where that target is, because I got to bring him way down. I can also right click here and adjust the height of my camera. Right now I have my model, we'll drop it a little lower, we'll do like 4 feet. Right now I have my model set. If I hit G on my keyboard, you can see that the 0 point on my axis is right here. So the model is justified down to the 0 point of it. So when I right click on my move tool, you can see right now my camera's at 4 feet, so I have something where I can just easily place the height of the camera. If I wanted to do it at eye level, obviously I do something like 6 feet or 5.5 or whatever it is, 5'7". So I could come in here then and just do guess vertical correction for the last step there, and then I'm going to go back to my top view, so T for top, C for zoom, grab my sun, and I just want to bring him over onto the side, and maybe, well, I guess we'll do it right from the side there. And if I go into my front view, F for front, just kind of bring it down so that the sun is kind of at a 90-degree angle to my roof, or maybe I even bring it down a little bit lower like that. And then I kind of want this to be really soft shadows in my space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my size multiplier and turn that up to 11. And then I'm going to hit T for top, Z for zoom, and G to kind of turn off my grid. So this is what my scene is looking right now. I just have my sun in here and my camera. And again, this is coming from that exterior file. So at this point I would do a save as and give it some new name, like here I called it camera and sun. But I'm not going to save over these files that I've preset up. So I'm just going to leave it here at just kind of keep working without saving. I guess I could just whatever. So I hit save. So I still have my exterior file with all the other geometry, which I had originally set up, and now I have this file. If I go into my camera, I can see that I also want to adjust my camera here, so I'll select it, and I'm just going to turn this down to something like 20, just so I can see more of my space. And then what I want to do is I'm going to come into my settings, and I'm going to adjust this so that I can, oops, we'll go back up to 1200. I'll lock this first and then adjust it down to 600, just so that it renders faster. And I think I've already gone through and optimized all of these settings. I have another video up on YouTube that you can watch in terms of optimizing all of the settings for your different areas, but I've already done this for this file. What I want to do though is come in here. I want to make sure the displacement is on, because there's, off rather, because There's brick along this wall that is being displaced, so I want to render this out just as quickly as possible, see what's going on with the lighting, so I turn that off. And then I'm going to turn on my override material, which is just a real basic white material. So again, this is the same camera and sun from my previous scene. I'm just using it for my interior scene. So if you had followed the video on setting that stuff up, you know, you can go ahead and basically reference that video in order to get your exterior lighting and then use it for your interior here. So right now I have, I'm using the Vray frame buffer, and I have the color curves correction down here on, and I have my stuff over here. I could just kind of clear this out. I think it's clear, or I right click and do a right click on here. So a way to clear this out and reset it. I think something's not showing up. Well, basically I just want to turn that off. All that's really doing, if you can see that at all, it's just turning it on and off, brightening up. So I'm just going to turn that off, and you know what, I'll even come into my V-Ray frame buffer, and I'll just turn it off, so it's the standard thing that you're going to see when you guys, if you're not using your frame buffer, it's just the standard render here. So there's a couple of things I noticed in that render. One, it was very dark, and two, looked like my camera had some settings that I carried over. So I want to turn off vignetting. My white balance I want to make sure is pure white, so that's 0 and 255. And then it was very dark, so I'm going to basically go a little bit more than half here, so we'll do 50. We'll hit render again and see what this is looking like now. So we can see overall this is looking a lot better. It definitely has a lot more light coming into the space, but it still is fairly dark in here. And what you got to do is basically add your fill lights to the space. What I could do is I could add in my sky portals by coming under create, and I would come to V-Ray, V-Ray light, and come over here, drag and create this guy, and just make sure that he is on as a sky portal, which will disable a lot of the options for the thing. And if I go into my front view, I can bring it up to the portal here, and I think it's at 35 degrees, and I want to rotate it in the Z, I believe. Yes. And then if I go into my top view again here, I can go back into my modify panel and just spread out my length a little bit so that fits in. So I mean, this is definitely an option here where I could bring these over, make an instance of it. Again, I want to make sure I make an instance of it just so that it is only calculating the light once for this. I don't want to do the calculations more than once. I only want to do it one time, and that's it. So if I make an instance of it, it's just like making an instance of an object. And again, I have another video up on YouTube that explains that importance of making an instance of an object and how it can cut down on render times. This is the same idea with lights. If I have a very complicated scene and I have multiple lights in the scene, it's going to take a lot longer for you to do your light cache calculations and all your different lighting calculations, just because you have a bunch of different lights and it's going through and it's doing that for each light. You know, if you come down here on the modify tab here and you have different subdivide levels and you have different things in here for affecting diffuse and specular, and you know, it's not the same for these things. It's really going to affect your render times. I mean, I would even recommend, you see I have two other skylights over here. I'd come over here, I'd make this an instance as well, come back to my front view, and I'm just going to rotate this around so that it lines up. If you notice, my rotation is set to every 5. That's because I have my snaps toggle on up here. So I'll just put that up there, and we'll go back to my top view and zoom in here. Make sure those are kind of over the right area. And you know, as I was saying, instancing is important, so I'll even make an instance of this here. Go into my front view, hit F3 so I can see what's going on. And what I'll do is I'll hit E on the keyboard, rotate this around so that that's 90 degrees there, so that I can actually use it on this window. And I don't want to change the value here, because if I do that, you see it affects all the other ones. So what I just want to do is hit R for scale and actually just scale it physically. So I can even scale it for these windows here. and just kind of bring this over like this into my space. So something like this, make that an instance. So I could do that. I could switch back to my camera view, make a clone of this, and should be able to see a difference in this as it renders out here. So we'll just wait a couple of seconds for this to finish. You can see my space over here on the left is a little bit different in terms of the light coming in, being filtered with my sky portals, but really these windows right now, since I have that override material on, are blocking out all of the light because I have a shade in front of there, and it really isn't doing that much. It's something that you can use. It's a little more accurate in terms of doing the lighting calculations, but I typically don't like using the sky portals because all they're really doing is just bringing in the light from the sun and kind of intensifying it in that area to give you more of your ambience in the space. So I usually don't like doing that. So I'm going to hit Shift G and show my geometry again here. I've cleared out all my sky portals, and I'll hit render again here just so you can see where we're at. And I'll even show you real quick just that setting that I adjusted earlier. If I turn this back down to like 0.2, hit render, you can see my shadows will be a lot crisper, a lot more straight edged. So again, I'm just kind of trying to avoid that by turning that up to 11. So what I typically like to do is come into the space, and what I'll do is create a box that's not quite the full amount of the space, and I have two base here. And I'm holding Alt and hitting my scroll button here to kind of bring that down and around, and then I'm just going to lower this some. I'll go T for top, Z for zoom again, and I'm going to do go back to my modify panel, do an edit poly on top of it, hit my edge modifier here, and I'll just do a slice plane and hit E for rotate this 90 degrees, and then slice it, turn off slice plane, then I'll rotate it around again. I'm holding Alt and the scroll button down, and then what I'm going to do is just select this top one, hit F for front, Z for zoom, and bring this guy up some. So what I want to do is just kind of create something within the space that doesn't quite fill the whole space, but is pretty close to the whole space. And then I'll hit T for top, Z for zoom, and I'm going to right click and isolate this so you guys can see what I'm doing. If I go to my create panel, go to my light, go to my Vray light. This time I'm going to select it as a mesh. I want to turn off the sky portal, make sure it's invisible, make sure I'm not affecting any reflections, because this is just going to be a fill light for me. I'm going to click to drop it into my screen. Then I'm going to go to the modify panel, scroll down to where it says pick mesh, hit pick and select that object. Now if I, since I just changed the object here, I actually have to kind of go back into isolation, hit exit, and make sure everything's showing, go into my references and make sure that's visible. So, if you're kind of isolating it out, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, it might be easier just to pull it to the side like that and do what I just did so that you don't have to turn your XRF back on. But again, I just want to come over, make an instance of this, and I'll turn this value down to something like 2. So if I hit C to get back into camera, come to my setup view here, I'll make a clone of it, and we'll hit render just to see what's going on here. You can see now it's quite a bit different. There's a lot more light in the space, a lot more just fill light going on, and yet you still have that kind of bright, dramatic light coming in through your skylight. You can see though there's a lot more artifacts in the space, and that's because if I click my light, well, one is the file has been super optimized, and the global override on the subdivides is kind of on and really taking all this stuff down. So if I come in my modify panel on that light, and again this will be on both lights when I make this modification, if I crank up the subdivides and then hit render again, you'll see all of these artifacts be cleared up. And that's just because, well, relatively cleared up, it's still a pretty rough image. But that's just because the way I have it optimized is based on the subdivides with your materials and your lighting. So if you want to clean it up a little bit, and again, this is only taking 8 seconds here to render, you can turn those subdivides up. And I kind of go over that a little bit in my other video on optimization again. It's in the settings category, and it's the global subdivides multiplier. You can see I have right now to 0.01, so if I have something at 60, if I multiply that by 0.01, that's basically giving me 0.6 for my subdivides. So, if I had that set to 1, obviously my subdivides would be at 60, and this would take a lot longer to render. So kind of that's what that number is doing, that's what that number is doing in terms of the artifacts and the rendering. So the last thing I would do to this, really, I mean, that's kind of it. Everything is really basically done for it. I'd come into, let me close out of here, I'm coming to my render settings. I'm going to turn off the override material. I'll turn on the displacement, and then I'm going to come into my references, XRF scene, and I'm going to add all my other stuff to it. So I'm going to add the island to it. I'm going to add the table to it. I'm going to add the wall items to it. And if this geometry in your other files is starting to bog you down, what you can do is just, make these visible as a box, which will basically just simplify your geometry down so that you're not having any issues with things. And we'll just hit render here and see what we get. Bring this over so you guys can see what's going on. See, my light cache calculation goes fairly quick. My radiance map goes fairly quick. Like I said, this is kind of super optimized just to give me an idea of materials, lighting, and my space. And so you can see overall what my image is looking like. Now what I could do is, it's still a little bit dark once these materials come into play here. I could still adjust that value on my camera if I select my camera here and just adjust this down. I went to 50 from 130, so maybe I drop it down to like 40 for the final image. But the way the final image is looking is, let's see, it's the interior lighting. It's right here. And what I've done is turned up my render setting. Since this file was optimized, the only thing I had to change in my render settings was down here with my max subdivides, and I turned it actually up to 8 for the final run in order to get this image here. You could watch that video for a little more explanation on what's going on here. But kind of 1 is where this is at, which rendered in 40 seconds, just to give me an idea of what's going on in the space. So that's basically it for the basic lighting. I'm gonna do another quick video on IES lights, and just kind of show you how to drop those in very quickly and get you rolling with that. So make sure you watch that if you want to get into a little bit more complicated lightings and specific lightings with your project.